All right, so we're going to jump into a little bit of live planning on the euro pound. We're going to start on the daily, and we're going to primarily focus on, let's see, this little sliver right here. So we're going to have this little bit of a range to work with. So lower boundary, upper boundary with a little bit in the middle. And we're going to start it. Yeah, let's start it right here. So we're starting to test the lower end of this range, and it looks like we're headed back towards that direction. So first things first, if you look at the overall momentum, it has been down. As at least for the short term, it has been in a bit of a downtrend. You could make the same argument on this little range here that we've just been in overall a little bit of a downward spin, and the computer's super laggy right now, so this may not go great. So we've got this nice little range that's formulated, and we've got obviously that upper trend line there. If you look at this swing right here from breaking into that range to the high, we've already tested that 61.8 and it's held. We're about to test it again, so I'm going to leave it on there. Let's clean it up a little bit. Get rid of the 161.8. Let's change this to yellow as well. So if you start to break this down for the perspective of this overall swing move, right? We're about to test that 61.8 again. Right below that, if we drop down to the 4-hour, you could probably see there's a little bit of a supply zone there. There's obviously some decent support around this area, being range low that's been tested a couple of times. And then you've got the 78.6, which sits below that. And if you were to look objectively and bidirectionally on this, you grab the impulse run down, tag that 61.8 perfectly. If we come back up, I wonder where, yeah, that ABCD sits just above it. So the ABCD is like right here. And if we were to even make this the swing, do we come back up and tag that 50%? Yeah, we do. So we tag that 50%. ABCD is going to be in the same spot. So you give yourself really this range to look at, and you can narrow that down just a little bit here to here. I've already tagged that negative 23.6, so that's the structure I want to go with, because we've already hit that negative 23.6 cold. And so let's do this. Let's make all of these really not that visible. Don't need to know about the negative 23.6 anymore. What was it that we hit? The 61.8 and the 50. So we can keep those on there. Get rid of these just to clean it up just a little bit. See, we hit both, and both held pretty well off that little impulse run there. And then if you were to do the same coming off of this, tag the 61.8 pretty well. And that's just about it. Coming out of here, now you start to really build some structure down around here if we were to break below. And if you look at the range itself, we already broke this little channel coming down. You look here, you've got this nice little channel that had formed that we've now broken, and I'll clean that up on the 4-hour once we dive down there. But really starting to test these lower bounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself just some extremities on the low end. And we'll dive into the 4-hour. Yeah, so you can see that we've got a nice little supply zone there. So looking at our demand zone, excuse me. So looking at the demand zone, we could see one of two things. We could see it come back down and just take off to refill that channel, or we could see it break and then make a run towards the lows. I want to go back to that daily because I wasn't quite done with those levels. So if you look here, you can see that this previous range structure, it's not where I wanted it to. That previous range structure held pretty well, right around where that negative 61.8 is. And so now that looks, we've got a lot to like around the negative 23.6. So really the way it's working itself out on the bigger picture. And why won't this snap where I want it to? So the bigger picture right around this area is starting to look all that more enticing. Now, if you fib to the other side, right, if we were to look at how this is shaping up, and let's just make this all green. Sorry, my computer is really aggravating me right now. Let's make this all green. So we're currently testing the 61.8 off of there. Let's take away 50. Let's leave the 78.6. Get rid of these. If you look to the upside, then we start to target that 50%, that overall, impulse run down. The 50% again is right at the negative 61.8 completion, and we've got a lot of structure around there as well. So if you look like right at this topper and where price took off to the downside, that's just above where that structure is. You've got your range high. So there's a lot to like to both sides, really. So now what we've given ourselves is we've given ourselves opportunity to watch for breaks, retests, and we have targets to both sides. I like that higher time frame view. Right now, there's not much that's tradable for me. There's not much that I'd want to jump in on. So until we get a decisive move in one direction or the other, I'm going to sit on my hands. But one thing that might be interesting to watch is if we do get a retracement to somewhere right around, this area of the range, if we start to pull back, I'll go down to the 4-hour. If we start to pull back to this part of the range right here, you can see that we've got decent structure there. That puts our overall targets, like at least for our short term, now that gives us a little bit to work with. It gives us a little bit of a leg to stand on here. If we run down, come back up and test this area, then that mini 4-hour demand zone with that overall 61.8 sitting within, that becomes pretty enticing as a target. So, but that hasn't happened yet. Obviously, that's something you need to sit and wait for. But potentially that could work itself out where you've got a good opportunity mid-range, but as of now, until we get a decisive move one way or the other, I don't have much to do. So this is, really the first iteration of live planning, but it is kind of live planning to sit out for now, which is unfortunate. Um, but that's really, what you want to be doing is you want to be planning conservatively and jumping on the opportunities as they arise. So what I'll be watching for is if we can get some strength coming out of here, out of the 61.8, and we complete that retracement up to the, the mid retracements off of this impulse run down, then I'll be looking for some shorts maybe to potentially bring it down here. But for now, I don't see a whole lot to do. So first iteration of live planning, I'll share the chart on the video, or on the post with the video. I wish it had more substance for you, but actually, if we just, one last thing that just jumped out to me. So if we get that retracement up and then pull back down, then we've got even more to like around this area. Not going to keep that on the chart either, but yeah, things to look forward to. If we can pull back up, or if we dip back down and we have, this area, if we just pull straight down and we come into this with some vengeance and then start to show bulls coming out of here, that looks good for a fill back up. So lots to look forward to coming up on this euro pound chart.